Yeah. Good afternoon. It's wonderful to see so many of you here for this conversation between Chris Durkon and Apichatpong Virasatakul. I'm Simon Field. I was many years ago the director of the festival many years ago. Can't even remember. But one of the things that made me so pleased to be here to make this introduction is that I wanted to remind people of the connection between these two, between Chris and Apichatpong, their connection with the festival and the family of the festival. Because when I was director, Chris Durkon was the director of the Boymans Museum, and we began very substantial collaborations, particularly in the area of installations and the idea of exploding cinema. And he also did some wonderful things. I remember we had a screening of John Maybury's The Devil film about Francis Bacon. And Chris arranged in Pathé 1, to John Maybury's great surprise, to present an actual Francis Bacon painting. And it was he was a wonderful supporter of the festival, and we did many projects together. But at the same time, one of the things that I also wanted to say is that he's been a consistent supporter of Apichatpong's work as he moved through different institutions. When he went to the Haus der Kunst in Munich, he was an essential trigger for the very ambitious project that Apichatpong did, multi-screen installation called Primitive, and that went on, and some of you might well have seen it, I hope you did, at the Eye, where it was given a wonderful presentation most recently. Chris also, at that point, announced to my surprise and amusement when he was introducing or speaking of Joey, he spoke of him as the Eisenstein of the jungle, which I was never quite convinced that it was appropriate, but it was very passionate. But Chris has gone on to be very supportive indeed, and at the Volksbühne recently presented the Fever Room. Of Joey, perhaps I need to say less. We've been working together with me helping him as producer now for many years. But what I wanted to mention in this introduction, that he is, of course, a very strong part of the Rotterdam family. Because while I was at the festival, the Hubert Bals Fund awarded him funds for his first film, Mysterious Object of Noon, which was presented in its world premiere here. And one of the myths that we always like to perpetuate was that he kept on applying to the Hubert Bals Fund, and we gave him money, and eventually said, we have to stop, because the film, by the way, those of you who have seen it, is a sort of shaggy dog. It's a story that could go on and on. And I like to think we said, no, we can't give you any more money. We must insist that you finish the film. In fact, I think it was a case that the camera broke. But anyway, that point was the one at which the relationship between Rotterdam and Apichatpong began, and which has continued ever since with regular visits. And now with this wonderful installation, Cinema Sleep Hotel, or Sleep Cinema Hotel, or Sleep Dream Hotel. Anyway, it gives me very great pleasure to introduce the two of them. And I'm sure that they're going to talk perhaps about sleep. We will see. Anyway, enjoy this conversation, and wonderful to see so many of you here.
Are you still awake? Yeah? Okay. This session is not called How to Sleep. Nevertheless, we're going to talk about sleep this afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank Simon Field, who had to run off to another event, for his more than generous words. And don't think I'm going to talk 10 minutes about Simon, although I could. I just want to mention one more thing, that often during, especially during the premieres of the film festival, I fell asleep because I was always so tired. And then years later, I read these lines by the famous German film critic Michael Alten, who said, "To sleep during a film screening means you trust the director." So much for that. Welcome, of course, Apichatpong Weerastakul. He's a specialist in sleeping. And that's also the reason why we started with Blissfully Yours 2002. Because it seems to be that sleep is almost like a fil rouge in all of his films. Think about Tropical Melody, 2004. Also Symmetry of Splendor, of course, 2015. We are going to see clips. But I would like to start in asking Joe, why did you specifically choose this clip to start with? Blissfully Yours, 2002. By the way, is this, in terms of your film oeuvre, the first lengthy sleeping scene?
Yes. And I have to say it's 2002, and I was more interested in the issue of Thailand and Burma, in the issue of borders, literally border, and the border of happiness, pleasure, and pain. You know, because in the movie they went into the almost like Eden landscape, and then gradually with this how you say, pleasurable environment, after with time it becomes something else. You know, it becomes a very heavy atmosphere. So this kind of going from one state to another, yeah. So it moved from the literal border of countries, because the other guy is from Burma, yeah, into more of the psychological, yeah. And so since from that time I was interested in this line of border between lightness and darkness, and from the beginning, from fact and fiction, whether this exists. And sleep for me is an ultimate one for all of us that we experience daily, you know, from the way that we conscious to unconscious, or something in between. Yeah. So this line, yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah.
When you write your scripts and think about, yeah, I would say, Tropical Melody, do you make sure? Do you feel obliged that there is a sleeping scene in it? Are you, when you write your script, you say to yourself, "Oh my God!" I mean, some directors say I have to write a sex scene, but in your case, it seems to be that you say I have to write a sleeping scene.
Well, it's a scene where the characters or where there's a shift in the cinematic structure, you know. Maybe we can show the clip, the next one from Tropical Melody.
And let's not forget to talk about this shift,
yeah,
that you just mentioned.
That's it, yeah. So the video.
We have some still images of the iconography of sleep in all of Jules' films and oeuvre. This is one of the stills. You will see many more stills, but what we would like to see right now is the second clip.
Yeah.
Tropical Melody.
Yeah, so this scene, the guy woke up from a sleep, and then later another guy, his lover, come in and discover an empty bed. Yeah, but it could be from a different time. Yeah, but for me, this is the middle of the movie where it's go to this border crossing, and you can see that the film later kind of deteriorate. You can see the celluloid and this kind of how you call the flicker, and then everything turns dark. It's almost like the projector breaks, So that is simple as that. That's sleep and going to another territory. Yeah.
When you told about these sleeping scenes, do you have any examples you have in mind of filmmakers? Did you think about how did other filmmakers deal with sleep?
But what do you mean?
In terms of there is a cinema of sleep. I mean, there are many examples of. Did you?
But of course, we like in this book we always Andy Warhol, right? But the one that really influenced show to me is Maya Deren. Yeah, Maya Deren. When it's always about this different plane of consciousness. Yeah.
Can you describe what she did? I mean, Maya Deren.
She mostly dream images. And also the confusion of time and of the film material itself, because sometimes the film is linear, but she keep deconstructing this time. So it's almost like you are entering a dream. That's what we experience, with the shift of time. Yeah. And
Joe is referring to this book, and it just came out, and it's called How to Sleep by Matthew Fuller. And this book is amazing because it covers the whole terrain of biopolitics, and art and literature in terms of sleep. And of course, Blaise Cendrars is mentioned, and Andy Warhol, and also Bellatar. The only person and the only filmmaker dealing with sleep who is not mentioned is Apichatpong Weerasethakul. But nevertheless, you have to buy the book, because this book is opening with a fantastic line, and that's what we are going to do after this introduction. The book is opening with 3 lines, which I think are extraordinary. Matthew Fuller writes, "Sleep cannot be directly known in its native state. In order to think about it, we must be awake. Or to know something by using devices for recording and analysis. Think about cinema. And even then, he says, we must wonder what we know. Sleep operates in oblique ways, arriving at cultural reflexivity only by a detour." And I think that's what we have, or that's what Apichatpong achieves in all of his films, when he introduces to us in such a deep way the theme and the iconography of sleep. So let's go quickly back. The first time you started to use a sleeping scene, in that sense, is in Blissfully Yours.
Yeah, I think so.
To find a symbolic way of dealing with this whole idea of the border.
Right, but also actually short films before also, since the late 90s. There's some short film about me recording myself when I just woke up and all this.
Why did you do that?
Well, I didn't know in the beginning, but why this obsession, this state. But I'm still not sure that I know, but it's I was fascinated by observing my own body, through the day, and later when I really into meditation, it becomes even more, it makes more sense, because you're just observing your breathing and your conscious, your focus, your thinking, and in dreams is an activity that you no longer can do it, and then it ties with the political situation at home, where that I work with the villagers for the primitive project, and we build a spaceship that people take refuge and dreams. And politically speaking, our body is a vehicle, and when you cannot deal with the reality, you sleep, and because it's the place where you can nobody can control you. You know?
So sleep as a form of resistance.
Resistance, and even yourself you cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it can be a liberation act or something. Yeah.
But you observed yourself while being asleep, waking up, but you also observed your boyfriend sleeping, and we will see even still images, and you say you do it a lot. Why do you do that a lot? Because to film somebody asleep is also, like Judith Butler is saying, an act of love.
Love, and at the same time trust as well, because when you sleep you really have no protection, and that's why we sleep in cave, in something small, in so for him to allow me to record is show the sign of trust, and I actually now it remind me I shot a lot, and also doing some kind of mobile phone shooting him and trying to wait when he will wake up. Will he sense this the spirit of the camera, or the sense of the eyes of the camera that would wake him up or not? Yeah. So this project, this.
It's interesting that you say that, because indeed some of the sleeping scenes, you come in or you cut at a moment when the person is in a state between sleeping and waking up. Is that another important form of transformation for you?
Kind of, because it's. I think the important is when we about to go to sleep, drifting, and then when we return from that. Because when you meditate, it's almost the same. You close your eye and suddenly you're in the dark, but you take a journey to your pattern of thoughts until you try to be very neutral and to really reach within your rhythm, and it becomes peaceful and slower, and then when you come out of it, it suddenly, I don't know how to explain, but the brain is changed. Mm-hmm. It's maybe like the same when you wake up in the morning. It seems like you have some ideas, or you're positive, and So this biology of sleep is also very interesting to me. Yeah, in relation to cinema too.
Is there also a different cultural notion in terms of sleep and sleeping in the context of Asia, Thailand, and our Western context? It seems to be that the way we deal in our cinema, or the way we deal with sleep in general in the West, is very different from the way you see sleep, or you depict sleep. Is that correct?
Not sure, but for me, I think it somehow deal with relate to death, and and to maybe a reflection that we are constantly have this so-called reincarnation all the time, when our cells in the body die and our cells, regenerate, and sleep is just one chunk of this rhythm, that we go in and out, and.
So you see sleep connected to the notion of reincarnation?
Yes, sleep and actually breathing and everything. I mean, because we have a different scale of different loop of activities to the very minute scale of life and death. I always talk about the lamp. When you see the light bulb, you always think that it's continuous. But if you're slowing the time down, you will see that is flicker, is on and off, on and off. That's reincarnation. That's dying, born, dying, born, dying, born. So it's about the different scale of time that you perceive so-called reality or existence. And, yeah.
Because that's another interesting line or an interesting image in your films, the flicker of light. The flicker of fireworks, of course, but also the flickering of light, and also the use of colored lights in your film. Is that related to that? I think we have a very good example of that in another clip here.
The Symmetry of Splendor.
Yes, Symmetry of Splendor. Maybe we can see something which is dealing with that notion of light and change of light, stopping and continuing. There we go.
Yeah, the fan is very obvious because it reminds you about how you can capture it, and with the shutter of the camera, the eyes of the camera, you can adjust the shutter and you can see it live of how it changed. You know, so reality is really not, it's like very fluid. Yeah. So, and also it really show the aspect that I really like about experimental film, that I was trained as an experimental filmmaker in Chicago, and I was, where I discovered Maya Daren and Stan Brakhage and all these things, that they are dealing with these eyes or the frame, and how how we as an audience, responds to the flicker and to illusion. That Brakhage once made a film about something to simulate his closed eyes vision, which I found very interesting. That there's this light, and I think it's the same thing of how the film and the film devices, tools, also expressed in connection with biology and perception. Yeah.
But let's say the ventilator also reminds us a bit of this very important notion in terms of sleep, which is called rapid eye movement. Because in our stages of sleep, we start with non-rapid eye movement.
Yes.
And then we get into the REM sleep, the rapid eye movement. And is that also a connection for you, or you say, no, there's nothing to do with it, because we talked about sleep as a form, as a political expression, as a form of resistance. We talked about sleep as a very important phenomenological expression, and this is something else. This is referring to cinema.
Yeah. It comes later when I was doing drafting and researching about Fever Room, and also during the Symmetry of Splendor, that when we sleep, we through the night we go through different cycle of this REM or not,
Rapid eye movement, REM.
Yeah, four stage, and throughout the night, this 4 stage cycle yeah. And each cycle lasts about 90 minutes.
Which is the time of a feature.
It's a time of cinema. So that means that cinema has a very closely linked with dreaming. Yeah, that's why when you see the movie of Love Diaz or Bellatar, you feel, oh, that's too long. No, you feel you go to the threshold of.
And you fall asleep during Bellatar.
Yes. Yeah. Or you. But I really believe that because cinema is always trying to mimic dreams from the beginning, how we develop movement and black and white to color and silent to sound is really dream. But for us, it's still very primitive that we still have this frame, but in dream we can look around, right? And so that's why I think the virtual reality, the VR, is the right direct evolution, because it really mimics how we experience in our dreams.
You mean 360 degrees?
Yes. Mm-hmm. That is, but it's still crude technology. But I think when I saw it, when I tried, it's like, okay, this is what the same thing as the 90-minute thing in the brain and dream, and that's why we go to cinema. We like the cave and the dark, so that's why we need it, because it's like dream. It's about this getting lost into a different narrative and something that we cannot control again. Yeah.
But now we have to try to be a little bit more precise about connecting sleep to dream, because we have these 4 different stages of sleeping, or we go through 4 different stages. One is connected to dreams. Gives you a possibility to dream, but another one is completely disconnected. And it's very interesting that through art, literature, philosophy, phenomenology, that Leibniz, the German philosopher in the 18th century, wrote in his book in 1714, Monadology, it's called, about the monad, this substance which can connect with other substances. He said that the best sleep is a sleep without dreams, because that's the sleep without dreams, which connects us to the expression of this thing which we call the soul. Beckett, he did it in a very different way. He said, thinking about the surrealists and thinking about cinema makers, he said, dreaming and the expression of dreaming and connecting dreaming to sleeping is just a joke. It's frivolous. Do you connect sleeping always to transformation, dreams, reincarnation? Is there also for you in your films or in your thinking a pure state of sleeping? How do you express the difference? How do you show us the difference?
I still don't understand the code there, because what is the pure state and what is, because it's all about recognition and memories. I think,
but there is a phase of sleep where we don't have memories or memories of at all.
Yeah, but because we maybe there is, but we didn't, so that's why we use some maybe substances, drugs, also in Latin American culture with ayahuasca and all these things to activate or to reactivate this hidden thing that inside, yeah, and it linked with so many cultures, with Tibetan, when you look at the sand painting, the colors sand painting, and when you look at the depiction of clouds in that painting, and when you take LSD, the clouds is really similar pattern of expression. So coming back to meditation again, so maybe drugs and meditation is the way to activate certain chemical in the brain, to achieve a certain perception that we have in. Yeah.
That means we are now slowly coming to sleep cinema hotel. People sleep,
Yeah.
they can sleep, and you keep showing bits of films with 5 themes, substances, to speak.
Yeah.
So, boats, water, clouds, sleeping animals, sleeping human beings, and bits and pieces of what I call sleeping nature. Should these bits and pieces of film, which are projected on an oculus, should they, talking about 360 degrees, the bull eye in the sleep cinema hotel, should these function as a way to influence people during their sleep, or do you want to achieve something else there?
It's just a dream to want to have a cinema specifically for sleeping. That's I feel, because for me, over the years, I become less and less interested in watching movies, and even in my own film, I sleep.
You sleep? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Every time, when I go to Cannes Film Festival,
You fall asleep.
the carpeting and smiling, and then sitting down 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then I fall asleep. Really?
Yeah.
And then people clapping or booing,
And then
I wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so this idea, I say, oh, why don't? And then with the fascination of internal image, I always believe that we possess the best cinema. We don't need other cinema. So, meaning that when we sleep, it's our own image, our own experience that we edit at night, process. Yeah, so that's why I think it's become, in English, it's underrated or what?
Underrated, underestimated, underrated.
Yeah, we just throw it away, but in fact, it's a lot. Each time we dream. So I want to create in Rotterdam. They asked me many times to create some project, and I remember from the beginning I said I want to make a hotel. I want to turn a cinema, the Luxor or some in the hotel into a hotel, and then it become reality here, there, and to subject people to lights, which is the consciousness of others, the filmmakers, the cameraman who took this image from different time in this land, in the Netherlands, and you are in it, whether you synchronize on, I don't know, but to sleep with this light, and to fall asleep into this territory,
Because now you turn, in the sleep cinema hotel, you turn the situation around. In your work, from Blissfully Yours, but also in the earlier little films, you said, you observe, you use sleep, you see sleeping actors, you have sleep scenes, and now I would say already with your theater piece Fever Room, and now definitely with Sleep Cinema Hotel, you say you invite actually the viewer, the observer, to sleep.
Yeah, to take a journey to.
But you want to offer the observer to take the journey of sleep while projecting images, while giving them cinematographic images.
Right. To have at least a shadow or some clip, different to a different person. Yeah.
And why these 5 themes? Sleeping animals, sleeping people, boats, clouds, water, waves.
As simple as Rotterdam, because it's a port city, and it's a city that been bombed and have to build up new from nothing, but the footage are the manifest of the existence of the past and the memory of the past that people, so it's more like reconnecting the spirit of those of different time that what you see on the screen and what, yeah.
And you think you can improve that experience or enhance that experience while giving people an opportunity and let's say the possibility to sleep, because that's what's happening at the sleep cinema hotel. You invite them to sleep.
Yes, and we have the book, blue book called Dream Book, that encouraged the hotel guests to write down what they dream about last night, for example. Yeah.
And what
so
did you
collecting?
Did you dream? Did you go there yourself and you slept?
I try to, but it's full. It's so out. So, yeah.
Okay, it was sold out. Yeah. No, it's the sleep cinema hotel is a very, I would say, Dutch project. Is a very Rotterdam project, because when you arrive at night, you see this oculus, the round circular shaped screen, the bull eye, and you start to notice it from the street. And you feel that there are people in the room, even if you don't see them. And it reminded me of these great experiences here in Holland, starting with Duiker, Johannes Duiker in Amsterdam with the Cineac, where you could see from the outside the inside and the inside the outside. It reminded me also about this great cinema theater, the Criterion on the Groothandelsgebouw, where you wandered in the first place, or you were invited to do your sleep cinema hotel over there. But also it reminded me of the work of artists like Dan Graham and Jeff Wall, from the Cinema Theatre to the Children's Pavilion of Jeff Wall and Dan Graham, where they also use references to cinema, to sleeping, to the Oculus. The architecture here is incredibly important for you.
I didn't know those projects, and I didn't view the history of architecture there. But in fact, I was looking around in September, and I couldn't find a space that I like to have the large enough space. But then the team with Edwin Carrows managed to find the World Trade Center space, and so we communicate by video clips and stills images, and I just saw it this week, So it's for me, it's more about the material, when they say, this is the material of the side is more like a boat-like, ship-like, and all this, yeah.
You mean the meeting room in the Chamber of Commerce makes you feel like a boat, because it's construed by this wonderful Brazilian wood, which is almost like an organic form of architecture. And you even used references to fishing within the room, with the fishing nets and other materials.
Yeah, because it's a boat. When you are sleeping with other people on this vehicle, and you go through, and I think that's why the image of the sea and the circle is so much, have so many memory that or reference within each people in different way, but for sure is bring back something about the, how do you call it, when you look through the telescope, when you explore a new territory, or so this kind, yeah.
So the round form, the oculus, for you is a reference to cinema of control, like cinema of war, like cinema apparatus used for scientific or for militaristic goals.
Yes, because it's a power. It's a tool when that change the war. When you go to colonize other country, you this device, you look through it. The ability to look far is power that make you one, and so it's very important. This vintage, this frame, and of course with the periscope, the one in the submarine and all.
In the trenches.
Yeah, so it has these references. Yeah, and also for me it's about this shape of the head, our head, and yeah, and the tiger head. And can go on. Yeah, but.
Now there is something very strange happening at night when you're there. You not just see these beautiful images projected on the circular screen, but you also start to see people dwelling in the shopping street downstairs. You see the screens of the shopping mall with people in underwear, sportswear, and you feel like you're starting to observe these zombies, consumer zombies underneath. Is that something you wanted to connect these dream-like images with the images of the street? Or is that completely by accident? Or is that Edwin Karl's work?
A combination. I don't think I'm so conscious about other screen outside, but more of lights, different expression of lights outside, because we open the curtain at 5:30 in the evening when it's blue and changing color. So you have this interaction of natural light and video light and how it changed to the night. And of course, interaction with the reality outside. And yeah, and then in the morning, the sun comes up. It's really spectacular. And then we close the curtain again around 8 something. So people, maybe they want to sleep more. Yeah, but this shift of light is.
Now, we missed one chapter, which is one of your most ambitious sleeping films, is of course Symmetry of Splendor of 2015, of which your theater piece Fever Room is a deviation of, is a part of. Can you tell us a little bit why in Symmetry of Splendor you take on sleep as such an important part of the story? Because the film Symmetry of Splendor, I once counted that we observe almost for 40 minutes sleeping people, which is a bit long, no?
Again, for me, it starts from, because at that time it's the height of the political problem in Thailand, where this military junta took over the country until now. And I feel that I want to make a movie of going back to my hometown. So it was shot there, but the hometown of death or of escape, that the people are under the spell, or that's the first idea, that everything is sleeping, and more political.
Even more political
approach in the beginning.
And for your new film, which you are preparing, which is going to play in Colombia, are you also writing a sleeping scene?
Let me think. Yes, and dream.
A dream.
Yeah, but when you finish the film, the whole thing feel really off. It can be a dream. It could be maybe like Symmetry of Splendor. Yeah, because it's about hallucination in the landscape. For me, as a foreigner, I just can normally, when I make film, it's about my personal reflection on memory of the Thailand. But when I went to Colombia, it's the opposite. I really absorbed all these voices and collective memory of the people, which is very heavy. Yeah, so I try to narrow down the focus and focus on meeting with the doctors in the mental hospital. So we went to different hospital and talked to doctors and talked to people. Yeah, and developed the movie about hallucination. Yeah, hallucination of sound. Yeah.
What's striking also is that you use a lot of sleeping people in your films. But I barely saw any sleeping animal in your film.
Let me think. No. Maybe there's little thing in the short film, but not.
Because in biology, it's interesting that that animals, they never eat other sleeping animals. That it's
Really? Is that a
rarely a
myth?
predator goes for a sleeping animal. Is that something you observed in the jungle? Or
Animal eat? No, not really. But is that true?
I read that once. I read that once. Yeah, I mean it's nice to
I'm
think
not sure.
about, right? Yeah. So you can try it out and find out and use it. The sleeping scene in Symmetry of Splendor is you have these people, they are not induced in sleep, though they have oxygen masks. And then you have these people who are observing the soldiers. Do they try to be part of their sleep?
No, they not people, but I think the lights are observing them, or being part of the scheme of sleeping. Because I was really into this research from MIT years back of different spectrum of light that can actually create. Fabricate how you call artificial memory, fake memory, If you activate certain part of the brain with different light, you can control. It's very basic now. It's still rudimentary, but it make me think and imagine this light changing of light,
But why do we connect so often the light blue to sleep, or the light blue? Or the color blue to sleep, or the color blue to hallucination?
How do I know? I mean,
not how you know, but why do we connect that color, that very color blue, so much to the quality of sleep?
I don't know, but it's when I made this circle sleep cinema, and when we open window, it's always to face the end of days is blue. It's the border, the color, the last color that.
We also speak about the blue hour, which is this border between day and night.
Yeah. So it's this in between. Yeah.
In the Cinema Sleep Hotel, there is a very, very important role for soundtrack. We hear these very light noises, which I suppose are noises of water, of wind.
Of the sea, of the wind. It's from my sound designer, and he make a loop for many, many minutes, and with the sound of the bamboo, kind of. So I want to have this natural material, that with the wind, so you have some cracking.
But is there also some dialogue in the soundtrack, some noises of human voices?
No, they're birds.
They're birds.
Yeah.
And do you mind if people speak there, if the sleepers, that they start to have a dialogue amongst themselves, that they start to whisper? I was yesterday night there, and the whispering was beautiful between the sleepers.
Yeah, that's a very nice, because it's a communal experience. I think because when we grow up, we become adult and become used to this privacy of sleep, But the Sleep Cinema Hotel opens up and bring back to this childhood when you sleeping with friends, or when you go to the camp and all.
Sleepover, it's called.
So this is, I think it evoked that.
You are not presenting here any of your films. This is the Sleep Cinema Hotel is one of your many aspects of your work, which is short films, features, installations like Primitive, but now also theater like Fever Room, which is now playing in Berlin and in Singapore at the same time. What else is there for you to discover?
With this new film in Colombia, I'm really interested in the sound and the sound mix of cinema when we see. So I'm developing also a theater project that link with the movie, and it will focus a lot on sound. because I'm interested in technology of um, because what we have image technology, right? Virtual reality, but for sound, it's not that much known. And in fact, there's a lot of development. Yeah, and there's a project that I heard about of artists who create an instrument for deaf people. That they have instrument that produce certain kind of frequency that people, deaf people, can feel, and they can make music that we cannot perceive. So it talks about, perception, that I see something different from you, and also people with disability experience the world differently. Yeah. So the sound, also this technology, another technology that I forgot the name, but it's developed by this lab that invented MP3 format. Yeah, and it's the sound that can touch. It's beyond 3D, but it's the frequency and the speaker design that you can feel it. So I'm really want to do this as a performance. Yeah.
So the tactility of sound, so to speak.
Yeah. The physicality.
The physicality of sound.
Because we always talk about the wave and something invisible, but we never talk about the sense. Yeah.
When virtual reality is not your thing yet, because some filmmakers are going there in a different, not in a different direction, but it's not something you're interested in yet.
No, I do, but I think I don't have this, but it's also very early that I feel that it's still a lot of limitation. Yeah.
And here at the film festival, you're presenting one of your film hopefuls. I mean,
what?
You're presenting one of the young filmmakers you admire,
yes,
which is Monse. You will talk about him tomorrow night at 8 o'clock at the film festival.
Yeah.
Can you say something about him? Because also he's very interested in hypnosis, and he's very interested in sleep.
Yeah.
Are you guys are branding a new school, which is a cinema of sleep?
I'm not sure about him, but I'm interested in him because of he's a musician before, and then his early works are video work that this fascination with light, abstract form, and then later he make film of more really physical that he shot on 16 millimeter and processed himself, and how you say the content is about confronting fear, which for us in Thailand, I think the interesting thing now is how younger generation try to express how to talk about politics when you are under this military with guns, and when your friends are taken into military camp, and we have this thing called attitude adjustment session. So many people were subject to that. They take you to the camp and they torture you, psychologically, and then they ask you to sign that not to do it, otherwise your bank, your finance will be frozen or whatever. So this attitude adjustment create a real threat that prevent or create a climate of fear for everyone, including especially people who work in the media, of what we can say, what we can do. So the young generation trying to find a way, and I think Mon is one of them that really stand out. And also he's from a military family. Yeah, so he confront that that kind of fear of representation of uniform, and also confronting his own, guilt or whatever, in film, and I think that's really admirable and really kind of he's in a unique position.
My last question to you, this attitude adjustment thing and the political climate in Thailand, is that also the reason why you decided to shoot your next film not in Asia, not in Thailand, but in Colombia?
I think so. But I still doing my short films and maybe some installation in there because it's the time to do it. And again, like other filmmakers, I try to find a way how not to sort into metaphor or how to confront it, because there's a line, right? That suddenly the soldier or the police can visit your house, how and I'm not an activist. I cannot. Yeah. So.
Do you still sleep well? Do you still sleep well?
Yes. It's really a pleasurable country to live. Cheap and good food, but unless you want to talk about politics or you want to express your displeasure of this dictator, it's impossible. So this kind of thing, and I think for feature film is about this expression, because I think it's impossible not to express in this time, but I cannot. So it transforms into shorter or other form that is not so widely distributed. It's more personal. But for feature film, another threat is also that because there's so many people involved abroad, and because of the instability of the country, and my little reputation of speaking out against the army, not so much visible, but there, the production can be shut down anytime. So I don't want to take that risk of the long project. Yeah.
And your films are received quite differently in Thailand than outside of Thailand, right? Because in Thailand itself there is some criticism about the way you deal with reincarnation, you deal with ghosts. People are saying, this guy, he's talking nonsense. I mean, this is not Thai culture. How do you deal with that?
No, that's Thai culture.
Really?
Yes.
I heard from Thai ghost specialists that the way you deal with Thai ghost culture is completely different from the usual way Thai culture is dealing with ghosts.
No, Professor Baumann, right?
Yes?
No. I think we have a...
Professor Baumann is from the Freie Universität, Humboldt Universität in Berlin, and he's one of the 15 worldwide known specialists in Thai ghost. It's a specialty in anthropology.
No, we actually talk together, and actually there's a lot of common ground in what I do, and the representation of ghosts and of women in as a we call pop ghosts and all these things. But for him, he approached it differently. I mean, he approached about the form of cinema that represent Thai movie is become a more popular culture, which for me is not Thai. There's nothing such Thai, but is about the Korean movement and all this Hollywood or whatever. Yeah, but I cannot make that. For me, it's beyond that. Ghost is not really literal, but it's more about attachment, about politics, about many things.
And how is the very last question, and then it's up to you. How is the Thai public reacting to these sleeping scenes in your films?
No, I think like many places. I mean that people there's a very niche group of people who kind of not understand but can relate to, because we don't have Rotterdam Film Festival. We don't so the moving image culture is kind of jump. Suddenly you have YouTube, you have all these things you didn't have before. So the learning curve is from pirate DVD and now downloading. So it's not really solid kind of relation of cinema tradition. But for me, still, film has no nationality. You know, the form is important. You know, when you make Thai film with Thai actors, the language, and I think those are illusions. But the real thing is how you look, how you take the time, treat the time, and how you edit and how you move the camera, and these are universal, yeah. But when you look at movies, not only Thailand but mainstream movie, they are the same. They're mainstream. That's why. So I feel that it's not fair to call my film not Thai.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sleeping is also universul, right?
See, yes.
Okay. So we have a little niche group here of 250 people interested in sleep and in the films of Apichat Pongwirstakul. Any questions to Joe?
I have a question, yes. And I missed to ask the question in Berlin. How do you pick up your team, the entire team you're working with?
Oh, for a long time, since the first movie, 2000, yeah, just from people who struggling together. That for me, I was holding my 16 camera film, and I didn't know much how it operates, and so the same thing I treat people, that we are learning through shooting, through making film, and so along the way it's become so it's developing understanding that that you sometimes you don't need to speak like with the production designer or something. They understand, yeah.
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
But you keep changing your teams.
Not really. The key ones are there. Yeah, the DOP also there are two, but yeah.
Any other questions? I see one hand raised over there.
I have a question about how you develop your ideas. Do you, when you develop your ideas and you write, do you work mostly intuitively, or do you also analyze a lot the themes and while you're developing, or does the analyzing come afterwards? I'm just interested in how you create your ideas for your film.
It's hard because it's through living and just observe your reaction to the world, and of course like other to get information from the news and from friends, and to keep a journal of dreams, and to also write down many things in computer and book. There's so many, and I don't know, automatically at one point it from all these notes it comes together, and
And do you write scripts or?
Script?
Yeah.
Yes, I have to. Yeah.
To get the money.
Funding, very classic style. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other question? Raise your hand, because we have two microphones. We have one there to the left and one to the right and one to the left.
Hi. In the very beginning of the talk, you mentioned about something about borders, and also about the border between pleasure and pain. Could you maybe elaborate a bit more on that specific type of border?
It's again about perception, because I specifically talk about Blissfully Yours, where the characters, 4 characters, go into this park, that jungle, to escape from the mundane life and to be liberated and to enjoy the touch, the sex, and all this. And but with time, this pleasure has become, the weight of time transformed it into pain. When you see in the film, the color, the green of the leaf, the trees, and the sound of of the birds and some are the same constant throughout, and the water, but the characters and the audience are sitting there for an hour, more than an hour. It start to change your relation with this image and sound. Yeah, that's what I mean. So it transforms. Yeah. Like if we talk more for 10 hours.
I see somebody there on the 10th row in the back.
Hi, thanks so much for being here. It's just so wonderful in every single way to hear you speak. I guess maybe my question's a bit about time as well, but I was really transfixed by the fan, by the spinning fan. And I wondered whether your films end up being where you start, or whether they become different things at the end. And perhaps at what point do you decide yourself, I'm going to move out from that spinning fan now, whether that's something that's happening in post, whether it's a feeling, just, how you think about rhythm, I guess. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for being here. It's always the post-production. I mean, that's why I really like movies, because it's in theater it's more pressure, but for movie, for me, I shot a lot of close up and long shot, master shot, whatever, and then just to have choices, and most of the time we end up using only master shot. Yeah. So but to know that they're there and to try, and I have my editor who've been working with me from the beginning, so he understands this rhythm. So yes, it changed a lot from the script through the editing, and luckily with Simon Field, he's, I don't know other producer, but he's so open in that, and for me, the job as a director is to, of course, to find the way to change, to make it better. Sometimes it totally changed the movie, but I make sure that the heart, the spirit, is the same as the script, even though it doesn't, physically not the same, but the theme is the same.
Did Simon ever say to you as a producer, this scene is way too long, you have to make it shorter?
No, being British, he's so polite.
Okay, good.
He never, really, no. And
you just referred to theater. You said last week in the Singapore Daily that you don't understand much of theater, but you do it. But you also said that the nice thing about theater is that in contrast of a film, you can always, with every performance, you can change things around. Is that something you miss in film, that you say, I would love to go back to the editing table, I would like to present other versions?
No, film, I mean, you can look at different angle. For theater, you can perfect it in successive show, but it's a trap, because you cannot finish, because you keep perfecting, and then you have to travel with it, So it's become some kind of like again a trap that you cannot move on. Yeah. So when I show in Berlin, it's another version. It's have a more element. Yeah. For example, so with cinema, it's more zen. It's more like when you finish, you throw it away. That's why I don't mind people sleeping in cinema, because it's no longer yours. It's no longer mine. It's become themselves. Yeah.
Wow, that's a good one.
Okay. Yeah.
Then quickly to installation. In installation, you can also change things, because I remember working with you on 2 versions of Primitive, that you changed not only the position of screens, but also some screen was larger in one situation than another. So again, that's not Zen, right?
Yeah, it's installation. It's I don't know. I enjoy it so much, because it's dealing with architecture, with my background and the space, and time how people experience things. But I cannot help sometimes that it feel almost like simply a decoration. You know?
Installation is decoration.
Yes, I mean it become kind of how you say it, not so intellectually challenging. Yeah, but
You know, this is on record, right? I mean,
yeah.
theater is kind of difficult. Installation is decoration. Watch out what you say.
No, but I'm sure that we all feel that, and yeah. But cinema is something, you know. But that's interesting because when we make Fever Room, right? You know, cinema is just screen, and we never feel the existence of the space between you and the screen. It's just darkness.
Right.
You just focus on this illusion, that the two-dimensional moving images. Yeah. So that's why Fever Room, I tend to make you aware of this space between the screen and So that's another kind of playing with space that become
Is Sleep Cinema Hotel installation or theater?
It's a hotel.
It's a hotel. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Nobody wants. This is a rare occasion to ask about sleep to our great specialist. We have one question first over there, and then you. This side of the room. There you go. There's the microphone. Thank you.
Yes, well, you were talking about virtual reality before, but you just talked about the distance between the cinema screen and the audience. But in virtual reality, this distance does not exist anymore. So what would you think the influence of virtual reality will be, well, on the storytelling if you ever work on this? Or the relation between the audience and the story you are telling?
It become more open, of course, and it become the way of narrative change, right? Because you don't have linear, and the control is less. It's more about the control of the viewer, and but I think in form itself, it's leading to something else. This freedom, it leads to again inside the head, because virtual reality is the bridge to another technology. I think that we can connect our brains together, and experience this either abstractly or in visually, because now there are they already be able to translate the wave of the sleep into very basic shape of image, So in the future, with virtual reality, with freedom, this connection of I don't know, not only one plane, but so virtual reality is one plane, but then it's leading to multiple planes when you can decode the wave of ours, and then we can connect, and then I don't know, maybe you can sell your movie through.
So that could be the next stage of the Sleep Cinema Hotel.
Yes,
in a way.
And it will happen. I'm very sure. Yeah, and it. I imagine that we will feel more empathy to others, because imagine you really can feel the fear or the happiness of others that you know of different belief or color, or I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe you can even feel their souls.
I don't know what so is, but yeah, this.
We have a question over there. The microphone is coming.
Yes, it's already more than a decade since in Tropical Malady you broke the movie in two parts. We've been speaking about the shifting from day to dream and back, but how would you consider after all those years, that break that was followed some way or another of your movies, but also other directors try to follow that path. Was just a fashion? Was it necessary for you, and was a fashion for others? How you consider it?
Such as I don't know others, but for me, I only work. You mean the form as a form? Oh.
As a form of duplicating the movie into two parts.
I don't know. For me, it's so automatic. When I develop a film, the Colombian film, now I didn't expect that, and then it did, and then it broke again in two parts. It's almost very organic way that they want to be like that, and yeah, it's not so. Sometimes it's not so intentional, and it's hard to say. Yeah, but is that?
Is your question about the way Joe deals with the time of his cinema, that he tries to involve in his own cinema several aspects of time, Kairos, duration, time?
But also the changing of the story itself.
About the two.
Really specifically in Tropical Malady. But
the disruption, no?
Also in Uncle Bomi, in some way happens.
No, again, for me, it's really basic. For me, my movie is so simple. It's the basic thing that I always say, that if you really want to experience the darkness, you need to introduce the lightness, that really strong light. So, so this kind of contrast is for me important. Yeah.
We can take still three more questions, but very brief questions, because it's 6:25. You have to stop in 5 minutes. That's number 1, number 2, number 3.
And we have the movie.
Can you raise your hands again? Thank you. Oops, suddenly we have more questions.
Hi, I just wanted to ask you about sort of the idea of sudden aesthetic jumps in your films. I can think in Uncle Boonmee, the whole film was on a tripod, and then when Uncle Boonmee's taking the group of people to the cave, suddenly it becomes a handheld shot, and all of a sudden there's this big aesthetic jump, and there's a change in the film, or maybe the idea of how you use titles in the quite late in the film.
That's not a brief question anymore.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, Joe.
It's a thing that I like, this flow, and maybe the non-attachment of forms that sometimes I think is also very heavy. For me, Blissful You is so heavy, and so I create a lot of rules for myself in that movie. So for the next one, I tend to be more relaxed and try to be more organic, and organic and at the same time conceptual. For each film, it's different concept. For Uncle Boonmee, we pay a tribute to different style of expression in the cinema or television that I grew up. So some scene, because the movie has 7 reels, like 35 millimeter reels, 20 minutes or 15 minutes each. So each reel has different expression. So when we go to the jungle, that's shift of another reel, and that reel have that expression. Yeah, and also different, because the jungle in Tropical Malady is jungle, is the natural light, but the jungle in Uncle Boonmee, in that reel is not the real one. Is the jungle that refer to the television in the past, or movie in the past, where you use something called day for night, where you just shot during the day and you have different. So it's a different treatment. Yeah.
In the middle of the room, that was question number 2. There we go. Brief question, please, because we really have to stop.
Hi, you spoke about your that you're working with sound a lot in your next film project. Do you think, for you personally, a purely auditory experience can be cinematic, or for you, if it has to be a cinema, it has to have a visual. Can there just be a cinema for the auditory sense?
No, it is so hard to answer because for me, this is cinema. I mean, everything. I mean, you can look. It's an experience, you know. So that's why I'm interested in these so-called performative part, you know, or sleeping with cinema. So the definition of cinema kind of become fluid, like memory. You know, you don't have this fixed form. So of course, sure, soundscape can become that because the cinema then happens in your head. You know, you have your own cinema. Yeah. Yeah.
Last question. I think, did we skip anybody? No, we didn't. Last question. Thank you.
You were talking about those experiments on the physicality of sound, and I was wondering about the physicality also of dreams and the way you deal with it in your cinema. I think there is a physicality to your cinema that's very striking, and so the relation between these things, sleeping, dreaming, and the physical aspects of that.
I think it deals with what we call it reality. I think when we dream, and how we process the information and to create another narrative that when you pay attention to them, they affect our waking hours, waking life. I think that and when you think about that dream effect to life, and also then you reflect to cinema, how cinema affect, you know, life. It becomes physicality. I mean, I remember talking to a friend. He's a actor, a Canadian actor, that he has to play a scene where he sleep and he wake up, and he tried to wake up naturally, but the director said, no, you have to be like quicker, you know, but it's not yeah. But then we talk and then we wonder, maybe we, in the future, we will wake up like actors because we were influenced by that. And, you know, so this is physical. And then we talk about the shooting in the state, the school shooting, you know, where people die, and the news reporter went to interview the parents of the dead kids, and the parents speaking, and then what happened was the public that viewed the clip, the television clip, say, hey, they were not sad enough, they were not cry enough, you know. So there's an expectation, and then you start to question, maybe we will be influenced by this, you know, this movie expression because of the limitation of time in cinema. You have to act out all these things that change reality. Yeah. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is no specific part of our body required for sleep. We can sleep without limbs, we can sleep without our stomach, our legs, whatever. But we cannot talk about the cinema of sleep without Apichatpong Veerastakul. Thank you very much.
Thank you.